All right. So you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to like wire up balloons that I could drop from my ceiling for this event. Like, hey, it's happened. I want to thank the Academy and because I broke this trade. I'm just kidding. People love when I say that. I did not break this trade. I just heard earlier today that San Jose was likely. And I wrote the Sharks are circling. San Jose is likely. But yes.
Well, what are we gonna do?
Like that.
Heck, what are we gonna do now? Pacioretty's traded. Carlson's traded. We might as well shut down the site.
I know. Like, what am I gonna do? Our previews finally. I'm finally gonna get to my previews. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So like, yeah, Panarin. We still got Panarin. He's out there.
Yeah, and
although I think
and Wayne Simmons.
And Wayne Simmons, but I think both.
Simmons isn't doing anything right now.
Both are going to be there till at least
deadline.
Yeah,
at least. But yeah, so if I could have dropped balloons, I want to thank Carlson for like being a good trade rumor guy. Like so it's like he made it through like a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
He made it through the end of the year. He made it through the draft. He got through UFA day. He was like, kept it going.
Even recently pictured with the team, but he wasn't available to the media. So, he did go the extra mile.
Yeah. He did everything he could. And he went, this rumor went, but got as much possible juice out of it on HockeyBuzz as we could have. I mean, I could not write another single article about Erik Karlsson. So I'm so happy it's done. I just want to celebrate. Like I called up my wife and she had some great news at work at the same time. So we were like, she's like, oh, I got this. I'm like, oh, well, I got this. So everybody's happy. We're all happy. Anyway, let's move on because let's start the show and we'll talk about this. And then we're going to actually get into a couple teams today. Calgary and Carolina. So we're going to talk about that. But let's start here. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, September 13th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund. I'm using my best radio voice today. And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today, we have, depending on where you're looking at, a coming or a going, and a re-signing, too. Like that, leave it this was one of those, like, magical, like, 5-minute things because Seguin and Karlsson, a lot like, this the PK Subban and Stamkos thing before. Remember, this is like when Subban was traded for Weber and Stamkos signed. Like Stamkos signing was a big deal. Seguin signing was a big deal for about 10 minutes because about 10 minutes later, this all went down. So let's go through the deal actually, and let's before we get into Seguin, we'll start with Karlsson because it's I want to bring up the exact names again because I'm and there's some interesting caveats to this trade, which I think we may have lost Mike, but
okay,
he would tell us. There's a really bizarre twist. Another one of these evil twists.
Well, there's always
that Dorian likes to put into his own. Like he's just a masochist. I mean, this is like another. This is just like
no.
All right, so Mike, we lost Mike.
I think Mike got kidnapped.
Well, it's not totally terrible. I wouldn't say it's probably unfair to say that this is such an evil twist because, as I understand it, there's some Ottawa gets something if Karlsson signs in the Eastern Conference. There's something in that. There's something in that trade, which is like just crazy. I mean, it's fine. That's good. I understand what you're doing. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's a draft pick. I think it's a pretty good draft pick. Maybe you have a first round draft, but he gets something if he signs in the Eastern. But if San Jose signs him to an extension, Ottawa gets 2 first round draft picks. That's significant.
Yep.
They get one either way. They get Tierney, who is a player that we talked about. We actually have a whole show where we talked about Tierney possibly being in this trade.
Yeah, Chris Tierney is a really good player. He's an excellent third line center.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and people who are giving him a hard time, like I mean, obviously you knew. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to predict the reaction from Senators fans on whoever they got because
right.
You can't possibly. There's no one. The best player in the trade is Karlsson. No matter how you slice it, that's always going to be.
It's always going to be the case, though.
Yeah. So the whole concept of the best player, whoever gets the best player wins the trade.
Well, you don't know. I mean, Could the first round pick be better than Erik Karlsson? There's always that chance.
Possible.
Unlikely, but it's always a chance.
And San Jose will be good, of course. But I do think you'll see. I think that what this really does now, that over the last week or so, we have seen 2 players leave the Atlantic Division to go to the Pacific Division over the last week. So we have Pacioretty is now in Vegas. Karlsson now with San Jose. The Pacific Division, which was struggling, has picked up 2 major players in that time.
Well, I don't know how far I got before I got cut off, but I said that I don't know if you revealed the clause that I was talking about, but I refer to it as the – what's that?
Explain it exactly, because I don't know the exact details of it.
Okay, I refer to it as the Montgomery Scott clause. It's the old Star Trek, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Because basically what this is and other people are referring to it as the Mike Hoffman clause. If Karlsson is shipped back to the East and he is on a roster at any time during the 2018-19 season,
just this year,
San Jose,
right?
Yeah, just this year, but it specifies on a roster, so it means like all the way up to June 30th. So I'm assuming traded before July 1st. The San Jose Sharks owe the Senators another first-round pick before the year 2022. So right now it's DeMello, Tierney, I think it's Balsers, I think his name is, Rudolph Balsers, Josh Norris, Russell, you've talked about a bunch, a 2020 first-round pick, a 2019 second-round pick, and the 2 conditional picks. The one condition is if the Sharks make the Stanley Cup final, they get another second-round pick. If Karlsson, and then the Eastern Conference clause. So
isn't there a first round pick if he extends in San Jose too? I thought that there.
No,
that's not the case.
Second round pick.
Okay.
Second round pick.
So if he extends in San Jose, it's a second round pick.
Let me mention the other players though, because I think if somebody from Ottawa or anybody was going to hate on this trade, you can't, because.
And I'm going to mark this point because Russ is, going to know these players better than anybody. So people in Ottawa who are freaking out right now, Russ is going to make sure.
We talked about Tierney. Tierney's an excellent player. He, even with some power play time, could get 45, 50 points a year. Just didn't get that kind of time in San Jose. Everything was pretty much even strength. So he had 17 goals, like 40 points. I really like him. I like Chris Tierney a lot. I followed him his entire career. Dylan DeMello has always been a defenseman who's had some offensive ability. And last year he had 20 assists. Like that's, he's one of those secondary guys where, you'll have him in somewhere in your middle pairing, bottom pairing, and, can still move the puck, can get the play started. So he'll add some points, but he's just a good defenseman to add. A very good defenseman. He's not great, but he's good. Rudy Balsers is really good. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy is very underrated. One thing, he's Latvian, right? So when he plays in the World Juniors, he's great in the World Juniors. He's pretty much doing it alone, right? They don't have much of a team, and he had a great year with the Barracuda. This guy has a great trigger on his shot, and he has good finesse in his game, but he can also score a lot of garbage goals. He has that in his arsenal. So these are pretty prized picks. And Josh Norris, if you didn't see him in the summer showcase, he scored overtime goals. He was excellent in the World Juniors. I know the talk is, well, he won't sign with Ottawa. He'll just walk away because he's a college kid. Here's the thing about college kids. They don't walk away from teams that they can have playing time with. They'll offer him a contract right after this year and say, you could be a top 6 player with us. And Josh Norris will sign with them. I'll be surprised if he doesn't, unless they don't offer him a contract. If they don't offer him a contract, they go into a senior year situation, hey, then they're in trouble, right?
They wouldn't be in this deal if they weren't going to offer him a contract. They got him to offer him a contract, and because like guys like the college players want playing time. I mean, every player wants playing time. So
I see. And here's the other thing. Okay, hang on. Like Scott Murdoch in this chat room is like, well, Karlsson will be retired before these picks ever bloom. The picks are just to replenish the system. The fact that they got 4 useful players, really good players. One could be a top liner, one is definitely a third liner, and one could be second or third line. And then one's a defense, depth defenseman guy, but again, can play a good role.
Right.
I don't know what else somebody is looking for. I mean, this is, again, if you are looking at this and you're saying Ottawa didn't do well, and I'm telling you, Pierre Dorian is an excellent GM. He is really, if you go look at these trades, he has gotten as much value as he's capable of doing. He's drafted well. Like, Ottawa's not going to be in a ditch for long. They're really not. But for whatever reason, there's this negative mentality, and I'll challenge anybody in the chat room to tell me that this is a bad trade.
I love this.
Well,
here, go ahead. Michael challenged you probably right away, but go ahead.
Well, no. I'm not going to challenge him because I agree with Russ. But what was strange was when it started to come down and we hadn't heard the particulars, and I was sitting next to a veteran Toronto reporter, and we were talking about what San Jose would probably have to give up. And the only name of that group that did come up was Tierney, but we were going back and forth of, okay, it's going to be Timo Meier, it's going to be Kevin LeBanc, it's going to be Hertl. And, the thing is, it's not Hertl because Hertl actually costs money.
Right.
Hertl makes over $5 million. And Hertl is a key part of that team, so part of the Sharks. So, moving him sort of takes away the impact of, not to say, I mean, he's a key contributor. He's a top 6 forward, so the Sharks probably wouldn't want to give him up. But I thought that them not having a first round pick in 2019, and this is the thing, Ottawa now is on the track of being one of the worst teams in the NHL this year. There's no doubt. Now, I'm saying, some of these players in this deal will make the Senators, but now, Thomas Chabot, CC, they're the top pairing or in the top 3 defensemen on the Senators. You have a veteran goalie and Anderson could bounce back, but they're not a good team. They're an incomplete team, and now they've traded their core. They've traded their heart, and they don't have a first round pick. Colorado does. So this is, again, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, how they could have not waived or given Colorado that pick this year in this past draft instead of doing what they've done. They've traded Karlsson, they've made themselves worse, and they've given up their first round pick for next year, and they've probably guaranteed a top 5 pick next year.
They got a first round pick back now, so they have a first round. Now, granted, it's not going to be as good a pick as theirs, but they did get it.
And it's in 2020.
Right. So
it's not in 2019.
Right. Did the Sharks not have a pick this year? I wonder if they didn't have.
No, they traded the Sharks pick went to Buffalo for the Evander Kane deal because they re-signed him.
Right.
So I think this is a good deal in terms of Ottawa getting as much as they possibly could for a guy. I mean, this is a deal that I would assume, again, like with the Pacioretty deal, that he's eventually going to get signed in San Jose. Otherwise, it's giving up a lot for a one rental. But now you look at San Jose's defense with Vlasic, with Burns and Karlsson. That's incredible.
Something I wrote this morning because along those lines, because this is kind of interesting. Okay, so I wrote Karlsson rumors are indeed intensifying again. People I'm talking to get a sense that most of the chatter implying this is really close to happening is being driven by Ottawa's desire to force the hand of some teams, which they have discussed Karlsson with. And the Sens really want this done. The price is still crazy high, and one source confirmed it was 4 pieces, which it did turn out to be four players. Another said he had a feeling he's going to Tampa. Another said that the feeling is around the NHL that he is going to Tampa next year. So why would anyone give up 4 parts for 1 year of Karlsson? You'd have to believe Karlsson. You'd have to believe you were a Karlsson away to win a Stanley Cup, he said. And one team does, and that team is the San Jose Sharks.
Right.
So this is and it's interesting because Wilson's been trying to get something done for a while now.
Yep.
And this morning I even did hear, and I wrote this, that I heard that there was talk of looking into an extension. I don't know how far that went. But that, so you only hear of extension if you have the deal done. So,
but the clues have been out there, right? Like, we've been talking West Coast for a while. Doug Wilson even said when he didn't get Tavares he didn't fill the cap space on purpose because he was looking for a difference maker and he didn't want to say that he felt would win him a Stanley Cup, but we all knew what he meant.
This feels like it's coming from above. Like it feels that this is like you've seen this happen to teams before. Like Doug Wilson is the kind of guy who we've seen him. I mean, how long has he been? He's been a GM for a really long time there. He's been
a great GM. I know you and I have differed a couple of years ago where you thought maybe he was going to get axed.
No, but I've always thought he was a good GM. I agree with you. I've always thought he was one of the exceptional before anyone was an exceptional at managing the cap. He was always good at that.
Yeah.
He really rarely ran into situations that were tough. And he would get people to take discounts and things like that. He wouldn't pay a lot. I mean, he wouldn't do long deals. He was notorious for that. Notorious for not doing more than 5 years, right? And I think that finally broke with Vlasic, but that's how long it took for that. But Doug Wilson is also the kind of he does have the belief and the mindset of you make your team good, you get into the playoffs, and anything can happen any year. He's not necessarily a go for it GM like this. And we've seen Tavares and we've seen Karlsson now. So to me, this signifies, and I don't have this on any source or anything like that, but it just based on Wilson's actions throughout his career and now this off offseason, I get a sense that maybe the owners in San Jose want to take they went to him and said, we're going to take a shot.
It might be partially that, but I think he's also reading the landscape of his own team. You've got Thornton, who's probably, I would say, more than 50-50. This is his last year.
Yeah.
He signs another, $5 million contract. It was less than what he signed for last year. Pavelski, who I think they probably want to retain, he's a UFA. And they offered Tavares $13 million.
Yeah.
So being able to extend Karlsson for around what Doughty makes, is around 10 million or 11 million. I think it's in that 10. I think it's 10. I don't think is going to be a problem for them. They may have to do a little bit of a selling job, but as you know, Eck, it's not tough to sell San Jose in terms of area to live in.
Yeah, San Jose is a really great. I mean, it is the only thing that San Jose does have. It is a crazy expensive place to live. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter, to players.
So Sweden, I don't think Erik Karlsson's worried about that.
Right. But I mean, when we talk about people go like the taxes and the real estate's less in places like Dallas. San Jose is among the most expensive places to live in the NHL. But it's that way because it is one of the most beautiful places to live in the NHL too. And the weather is fantastic year round. And it's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place for kids. There's so many activities. I mean, California is a wonderland. It's a phenomenal state. And my wife and I were always joking. We were when she was living out there and we were engaged. I spent a lot of time out there when I was touring. And we both jokingly say, why did we move back to Pennsylvania again? I mean, California is absolutely stunning, right? We came back for family, but it's a great place. Karlsson makes a lot of sense there. Every time I thought about it, you could picture him in the uniform. You could just picture him in that environment with that kind of team. He's going to love the fact that the media is not what it is in Ottawa. It's the opposite of Ottawa in terms of, Ottawa is such a rumor mill within Ottawa itself because there's only a few bars that players go to. There's not a lot of people living in Ottawa. It's a lot of government people in Ottawa. So we've over the years we've seen all kinds of people being chased from Ottawa because of the Spezza and Emery and all.
The thing about Ottawa is, you can't get away from the fans. Like if you go out to party or whatever, the fans are there with you.
They're right on top of you. And they love to gossip in Ottawa. It's a government.
It's a transient city, and half the people who live in Ottawa are not fans of the Senators because they're from Alberta or they're from Southern Ontario and whatever. So they're fans of other teams. What I thought was interesting is yesterday when we had Kevin on the show, he talked about Tampa and how he didn't think that Tampa was out of the whole situation. And the thing that was strange was he said, well, Tampa didn't have enough resources in terms of assets to trade. And Russ and I both know that Tampa is absolutely loaded in terms of an organization, in terms of young assets and draft picks and prospects. I think the Tampa mentality was, would we give up 6, 7, 8 pieces like San Jose did for a guy we may get next year free agent and not to spend assets?
Mike, do me a favor. Do me a favor and log out and log back in with us, or your phone.
Yeah,
Maybe restart your phone. You're just not in a good cell area.
Here's what I think, though. I mean, right now, of course, they'll talk extension. He's not going to sign an extension, but at least they'll have an idea of where the money is. He's not going to sign it right away. I think Erik Karlsson will listen to all offers. And I think what will happen is, because of that, if they have a really good season, if they're really close to winning a cup, they probably have a 50% chance of re-signing him. But they also have probably a 65% chance of winning the cup this year. So I think it's a tremendous move. I think they had to do it.
Look at that power play now. Yeah, that power play just got insane. It was already really good.
Yeah.
Now you have Burns and Karlsson on the point.
And Joe Thornton's around.
Thornton is still a great power play player. Pavelski,
But that's what I'm saying. I like that end of it. But I also, again, I have to address this end of it from the Ottawa end. I know people in Ottawa. I talk to people there all the time. This situation won't stay like this forever. They will get an arena. Things will get better. And that's why I believe Duchesne and Stone will get re-signed. I've spoken to people there. Those guys want to be there. The reason they came out the other day and said what they said is because those guys want to be there. Yeah. They're going to have to spend money anyhow. You're still an NHL franchise. Those guys will get contracts. So for people that say, oh, they're going to be gone, they're not going to be gone. Now, Cody Ceci, yeah, he could be gone. Because, again, Ottawa's got other defensemen in their system. They already have young defensemen coming up. Cody Ceci's a guy that, if they don't want to pay him his price, I don't blame him. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, and that's gonna be a tough one. He's definitely at a different stage than probably that they would want to sign a player right now. But you're right about. I mean, there's an interesting thing about hockey players, and I know you know this, and it's like you've seen this before. They thrive in the underdog scenarios, and if the whole world says that they suck. It's like it's like something that every coach wants to happen. It's an amazing thing. Like there's no question that even I think Melnick came out and said in his letter to the fans, we were everybody thinks we're terrible and we love that, we embrace that. Really not really a place for the owner to say that, but players definitely jump in. And so the player who was interviewed by Melnick or who interviewed Melnick in that infamous who was that again? I can't remember.
Mark Borowiecki.
Right. Okay. I was told, because I remember I talked about it, I thought it was a strange thing. I mentioned this on the air or off the air, but I thought it was a strange thing that an agent would let this happen, like that a player would be put in this spot and like in a comfortable spot. I was told that he volunteered to do that. That he feels really strongly about Ottawa, feels really strongly about the players who are there, feels like they're getting ripped on, feels like everybody thinks Karlsson's the only player that's worth anything, and he wanted to be a part of that. Like he volunteered to do that. Which is a really interesting, great thing to know. Like, and I think that, that really shows leadership. It shows the players, no matter what situation, they'll embrace. There are always players who will be prima donnas and will always want to get out of there. But that's the exception in hockey for the most part. Players, they can be on a team that's just terrible and they still embrace the situation and they're the hockey players are such optimists usually. I find that they're always like the eternal optimists. They always think, oh, we could be good. We get a better goalie, or this goalie gets hot. They don't see it like fans. They don't ever see it like fans see it. Fans see it totally differently than players do.
And they're not guaranteed to come in dead last. I mean, they have more talent than that. They're probably not going to be able to move Bobby Ryan. Now, we know that Gabrick's going on LTIR. That doesn't shock us. Like, remember I mentioned that a while ago that I thought that might happen. But still, they still have Duchesne. They still have Stone. They're not going to trade all these guys this year. They're probably not coming in last place. I got news for people that think they are.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, Russ. I think they're horrible. I mean, I think they do have Stone and they do have Duchesne, but more than likely, right now
he's going to still get 25 goals.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Until he breaks his finger, which will probably be like in Game 3.
You sit there and say that they're horrible because obviously they've lost.
Because they are. I mean, I'm not saying that for shock value. I'm saying it because I believe it.
No one's horrible until they play a game this year. First off, so we have you can sit there and you can project that the players aren't going to develop or none of the rookies are going to come in and make an impact or whatever. But we don't know any of that. That's not. You can't tell that yet. I mean, no one knew what would. I mean, forever we'll have Vegas in the example, right? We just no one knows what's going to happen here. And they have a good goalie.
Yes, and 2 years ago they proved me wrong because I said they were going to finish in last place,
Right.
and they came within one goal of.
Yeah, no, and that's true.
What's that?
They're going to prove you wrong again.
I mean, if you
Well,
go,
I know, but last year when I didn't predict them, they did end up near the bottom of the league.
who's
So
worse?
you know,
Who's worse? Who's worse? Let's throw this out there for a second. Montreal or Ottawa?
Ottawa.
Montreal's worse.
Russ, you think
Ottawa.
Montreal's worse, right?
Absolutely, Montreal's worse.
Yeah.
Other than Carey Price, their defense isn't even as good as Ottawa's.
Right.
They have a better offense, perhaps, but that's even iffy.
That's very iffy. And with without Shea Weber for who knows how long,
Right.
I think Montreal is right there. You know, like I think that they're right there now. Who's Carolina or Ottawa?
But right now, Carolina's better.
Carolina should be better.
They should be, but it's close.
It's close.
And because we're with both.
I think Buffalo's better than Ottawa.
I think Buffalo's better. Sure.
I think the only team. I think the only team in the Atlantic that has a chance to be worse than Ottawa is not Montreal. Is Detroit without Zetterberg?
I gotta tell you something.
Jimmy
the Islanders could be worse than Ottawa.
It's really interesting. Like
I said in the Atlantic.
Okay.
In the Atlantic. Right. Listen. I mean, the Atlantic was already the worst division in hockey, and it has lost Erik Karlsson and Mats Pacioretty over the last couple of days. Right. So we're talking about a division that, but there are obviously there's still players here. But what I think this all points to is Florida is going to be good. I think Florida is going to be really hard to keep out of the playoffs. It feels more and more to me like we got 4 teams coming out of each division because the fact you can beat up on so many of the teams, and Florida is a good team.
Only if Luongo stays healthy.
Right.
I agree. Their defense is really good. Their forwards are great up the middle, especially with Trocheck and Borgstrom and of course Barkov. But I'm sorry if Luongo gets hurt and they have to play with James Reimer and Michael Hutchinson, they're not a playoff team. Now, if Luongo can play 50 to 55 games, then I think you're right. But I'll tell you who is the happiest. The Bruins.
Man, we're losing again, Mike.
The fear of Karlsson going to.
You're in and out. Bruins are the happiest. I got that. But yeah. Oh man, I don't know. We're having trouble with Mike today.
Go ahead.
But I don't know, Mike. You're wearing like everything.
The other thing I was going to say, like Cousin Eddie's like 65% chance for San Jose to win the cup. Yeah, I got to tell you something. I'm not a betting guy, but if the betting line after this trade were to come out like San Jose is still something like 8-1 or 10-1, you should bet that because they have the best team in the West right now. They do.
Yeah.
Yes. I think they've vaulted. I mean, they've countered the Vegas move of Pacioretty.
Yep.
And I think they're, it's them, it's Nashville, it's Winnipeg, and it's Vegas, and that there's your top 4 in the West. But no, like I said, I don't know if I was garbled or not. I think the 2 teams in the East that were the most happy with this trade were Boston and Toronto, because if Tampa had gotten Karlsson, I don't think they would have a chance to beat Tampa in the to get out of the Atlantic. Now, with Karlsson at least this year out west, Tampa's still a juggernaut, but I think they're now they're at least beatable in the realm of possibility by the Bruins or the Leafs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they are. I mean, I just think that I really feel like it's too soon to say on so many of these teams, and there's so many question marks, and we're going to get into Carolina preview next here because there's so many question marks with so many teams in the Atlantic Division, especially, and even the Metro Division. The Eastern Conference, so hard to predict actually, with the exception of a few teams. There's a real big middle, and there's a couple teams that are obvious in the top, and there's a couple teams that are obvious in the bottom. But the middle is huge. I mean, absolutely huge, right? So,
well, before we get into the previews, we have to talk about the other big news of the day.
So earlier today, I was talking to somebody, and I was about to write in my next blog that Seguin was close to signing because, and it was not the first person who said this. It was going on all day. It was going on for the last couple of days. But I talked to somebody who said that Sagan way back last week was telling people he wasn't worried about it at all, that it was basically going to get done. And it's interesting that you hear he's disappointed. He came out and said some things that he was disappointed, right before that. But I also didn't he say all that stuff at like a golf tournament? I'm kind of like
no, it was at the BioSteel gathering in Toronto, and a lot of people thought that basically he said that to jumpstart things because there wasn't a lot of traction with the negotiations, and he made a lot of noise about potentially being a UFA and following in the footsteps of John Tavares. So
right.
I think that got things going.
Right.
And if you look at the deal, I mean, essentially, and remember, Jamie Benn got $9.5 million. I think the cap was 73.5 or something like that the year that he signed that extension. Sagan got 9.875, so they didn't give him over 10 million. So he didn't beat Tavares. He didn't beat Anze Kopitar. I think he's a better offensive player than Kopitar is. He didn't break 10 million, and in terms of percentage of cap, I think he's on par with Ben. So this is a good deal, as Russ said to me. He says, this is a good deal for Nil. I think that's right.
This is a great deal. I mean, he's a center. He's a top 10 scorer in the league. He is a fire starter. He's young. Like, you're getting everything you want out of a guy right now.
Yeah.
You're keeping him there. We talked about it. Like, we would have been shocked if he didn't go. Like I said, other than Jim Montgomery hating him, I couldn't understand why he would ever go anyhow. So I'm not shocked that he got extended. We all expected it. But the thing is, he is the kind of player you can build around. And so at the end of the day, like Mike said, when Spets is gone, no big deal. You still have Tyler Seguin. Teams would kill for Tyler Seguin. If he ever got on the open market, they would probably pay more than what Dallas just paid for him.
You're definitely right about that. I mean, and it really, I guess we shouldn't have. I guess we should have expected this. I was starting to worry. I mean, I guess I was just starting to worry a little bit.
I mean, look, you have to always worry in today's day and age. I wasn't going to say it was a lock. I never said it was a lock because nothing's a lock anymore. But if you look at it, they had to do this deal.
Oh, they definitely had to do this deal. I mean, they did. I mean, at the end of the day, they really had to. And the way they announced it. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. This has to be seen. Okay. This is what I love. We talk about all the things we hate about social media. This is what we love about social media. So then they have. So that if you're listening to the podcast, there's a little green guy with a hockey stick going through, destroying all these logos of teams. So, people are like signing. Maybe those are teams that are interested in him. He takes the Predators out. And it's a Mario. It's basically a Mario game. Takes up the Capitals, crosses the River Hades. Onto the rink. Now he's playing against and he scores a goal, and then this is the greatest thing. Then there's a little. Oh, this is the amazing thing. Thank you, Tyler. Your quest is over. We present you with a new contract extension to 2026-27. That's just awesome. Come on now.
They win the internet today. They do.
They totally win the internet. And I thought that was the most amazing. And again, right after that too. And this is what people out there are so crazy creative. Someone right after that writes, in response to that, we're sorry, but Erik Karlsson is in another castle.
No, that's Super Mario Brothers 1 or 2.
That would be Super Mario Brothers 2, I think.
I don't know. I never played.
I think it's 1.
Remember the whole joke was you were always trying to save the princess, and you would get to the end. You would get to the end of the level, and it says, "We're sorry, the princess is in another castle." So that was the joke that they say, "We're sorry, Erik Karlsson's in another castle."
Yeah, see, I never played Super Mario. I just wasn't.
It's phenomenal. I mean, just awesome. I mean, just awesome stuff.
That's great. That's fantastic. And again, now this is something that could definitely give hope to Dallas Stars fans. Like, now you don't have to worry about losing this guy. You've got a new coach. You've got a lot of young players. It's looking pretty good in Dallas.
But it was a no-brainer in the sense that it's his contract. I think he was making $7.5. It's expiring at the end of this year, and you had the open cap space because Sagan was making, I think, $5.75. So I mean, you had the room to sign him, and he is your number one center now. I think they need to improve their depth up the middle, but that's not Sagan's fault. I mean, he's a number one, and he's a a very good number one center. So yeah, this was a no-brainer, but it was a good amount, and that was good on nil.
Yeah, really good on nil, and and it was interesting that some people were connecting the fact that that maybe Dallas was still in on Carlson, and then when this happens, they're out. I don't think that had anything to do with it from talking to people at all. It was more or less the fact that camps are opening, and both trades had to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, again, I saw a tweet yesterday with Erik Karlsson somewhere either at a rookie tournament or media day or something with the team and said that he won't be speaking to the media. Like, you knew it was coming. I called someone specifically yesterday in Ottawa because I knew it was coming. We texted and said if he's traded yesterday, we were going to do a show no matter what the time of day was. Like, we were expecting this.
Yeah, we were expecting all this, and it really does. I mean, for all the distraction that has gone on, it would have just been horrible to trot him out onto the Ottawa ice for it would have really been the worst.
Now here's a fact. Go ahead, Mike.
I just think that the Melnick video that we've talked about was the signal. I mean, if we knew, Evan said weeks ago that it was imminent.
Yeah.
And so he was sort of ahead of the curve there. But it made too much sense for him to be moved, especially in the direction that the organization is going. And when the owner comes out and says we're going to have 10 to 15 new players in the next 2 years, well, how are you getting those new players? You can't sign them off the street. You're trading assets that you already have to get them. And Carlson was one of those assets.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the building, though, they took down like these big photos that they used to have of players like Carlson, like Ryan, and they took them all down now. So I don't know what they're going to do for rebranding and marketing the team. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Lots of pictures of Mark Borowiecki.
All right, so let's move on to Carolina. And before we talk about Carolina, I mean, first of all, the team that's named after a weather event that is going to try to kill it this week. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of crazy. I mean, my thoughts and prayers are with this. It's such a crazy hurricane, but my wife was like, why would they name their team after something that's just devastating to them? I said, well, the University of Miami did it too,
Right.
I don't know.
Coming to the area, so that's why they did it.
Yeah, it's the part, and hurricanes are, when they're not hitting you, they're romanticized and they're dramatic and they're obviously amorphized, because we give them names.
How are they romanticized? Are kids born in a hurricane? No, I mean, are you married to someone in a hurricane?
The way they're covered is almost like they're existential beasts. You know what I mean? It's like the way they write it. There's written.
If you survive, then that's what it is.
Yeah, well, they're living things that are attacking us, kind of like
Well, the reason they're covered the way they are is because they're slow in developing, and the Weather Channel can get 5 or 6 days of programming out of it, whereas a tornado pops out of nowhere and is gone in 5 seconds.
What if I was part of the government? Okay, you can say global warming. I'm not going to get political, but why there's more hurricanes now? Okay, maybe it's global warming, maybe it's something else, maybe it's just the ebb and flow of tides or whatever. But can't we come up with a way to stop these things in some way, shape, or form, or slow them down? Can't we? Can we not come up with Can we not blow up a bomb in the middle of these things or something, or do something?
It is science. It is getting worse because of climate change.
Yeah.
And the only thing you could do is build better. But some of these states decided back in like 2012 that they didn't believe in this science, so they didn't. So unfortunately, like North Carolina is going to have a problem. That's it.
And cities like Charleston are basically like at sea level or below.
Myrtle Beach, the Outer Banks of North. I mean, these are beautiful places. They're just going to absolutely get wild.
I feel terrible about it.
All right, so here we go.
Let's feel good again and talk about
the Carolina Hurricanes. Okay. Last year, some interesting stats about the Carolina Hurricanes. Their goals per game, 2.79. That would put them at 23rd. Their goals against per game, 3.12. That would put them at 22nd. You never want to be in the 20s on all these categories. The power play percentage, 18.4. That's 22nd. The penalty killing percentage, 77.5. That's 23rd. So you're talking about a team. The shooting percentage, 8.1. That's 28th. Save percentage, 89.3. That's 31. Worst save percentage in hockey. All right. So and yet they won a category. They are the best face-off team in the NHL. 54.1%, which goes to show you that winning faceoffs is not the key to the game. Like
No, because once you win the faceoff, you actually have to put the puck in the net.
everybody's always like, yeah, I know, but everyone's always like, yo, if you win the faceoff, you got the puck. It's good. That teams that win the faceoffs. No, not in this case. Nope. Let's look at their ages. Okay, they are a relatively young team. I think so. Let me go through this here. So so their top 12 forwards are. The average age of their top 12 forwards, 24.6. That makes them the youngest forward group in the NHL.
But they have two guys. One's 20. One's going to turn 19. That's why.
Yeah, but that's still they are the youngest. The top 6 defensemen, 24.9. That's the third of all defensemen. That's the third youngest team. So of their 20-man roster,
well,
they're 35. They are the youngest team in the NHL.
Let me just add this: they have the youngest forward group in the NHL, and they have one of the oldest forwards in the NHL, and Justin. So that makes it more impressive that they're one of the youngest. But
it does.
I mean, we have to say here that they're a team, and we've said this a few times. They're a team that had trouble scoring goals, and they traded one of their best goal scorers.
Right.
I mean, honestly, for one thing, we've got to set roster resource straight. They've got Svechnikov and Netchis on the third line. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That will never happen.
No, you're right about. I mean, Svechnikov, they are convinced. I don't know. They're convinced he's making the team. I talked to people down there.
Team, Mac. He's on the team.
Yeah,
Next the guy that they're not 100%, but I'm pretty sure he's going to make it too.
So don't you think both those guys are going to make it?
I think both will make it. Yes.
Yeah, and they're up the middle will be Aho, Neckish, and Jordan Stahl, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
But they don't have a ton of scoring. They're depending on Svechnikov at 18 years old to really score. They're depending on Tarainen, who they got from Chicago. They do have one of the best defensive cores in the NHL. When you have Justin Falk as your fifth defenseman, which I still think is going to be the case, he's going to be on the bottom pairing, and then maybe power play time. But they're gonna they got Dahan, Pesci, Slavin, and Dougie Hamilton as part of the trade. Their defense and depth in the organization with Bean and Fleury and Adam Fox if they get him signed. But the goaltending is a problem still.
Well, they went out and they got Peter Mrazek. And
the goaltending is a problem still.
Well, here's the other problem too. I mean, again, Dougie Hamilton definitely excellent with the offense. Falk's offense dropped a lot last year, so I don't even know if they're going to get as much offense as people think out of the blue line unless Falk has unless he goes really back to his old self, which he needs to do. I mean, there's a lot of ifs with this team. Too many.
I mean, and then Brind'Amour, first-year coach with all these young players. That's also a tough one, I think Brind'Amour. I mean, what Brind'Amour brings to the table is obviously work ethic second to none, right? That's what you want when you have Brind'Amour. You want to have a guy in there who's going to show you that he's he's eating a pizza and exercising at the same time. Like the Brind'Amour never stops exercising, so he's going to absolutely be, he's going to teach them good habits. But how good is he working with super young players? Like this might be the team that you wanted to look to a coach who's really young. I mean, like who has, experience working. Like this might be the place where you want a college coach.
Well, that's the thing. He's an unknown commodity, and we have we have Don Waddell, the veteran GM. I'm hesitant about Carolina simply because I'm waiting for the next time Thomas Dundon meddles in the running of the organization, and I do think that they're in the midst of this changeover. They traded Skinner, and I think they're still going to trade Falk. I think they're just waiting until the deadline to do so. They're a team in transition, and they're in a division that is extremely tough. So right now, we're not making predictions on where they're going to finish, but I think they're going to be in the bottom of the Metro.
I mean, I'll tell you this as a prediction: if their goaltending is what it was last year, if Scott Darling doesn't clean it up, they will be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one.
There is no backup there. Peter Mrazek is not an NHL backup anymore.
No, this is a place where I could see Steve Mason ending up.
Yeah.
I really could because, and it's amazing to me that Steve Mason's still out there, but he is going to end up somewhere.
If you're a Hurricanes fan, you're hoping to never see Peter Mrazek. You're hoping that Darling is so good he plays 65 games, 70 games.
I think Steve Mason is waiting for an injury to happen where he can go in and play as a pseudo number one, because I'm sure he's had opportunities to sign someplace as a backup, and we know that in Winnipeg he wasn't any good as a backup. And Eka, you've said how many times that Mason is better when he gets lots of work. Well, he's not going to get lots of work anywhere.
He's really not, and really at this point you can't expect. I don't know. This is a place where he could perhaps get a lot of work. If somebody goes down, he goes in there. It's possible, right? If Mason were to end up there are a couple places I think Mason could end up. I think he could end up here. I think he could still end up in Pittsburgh. I've heard that too. I continue to hear that. Again, not necessarily the best thing, because in the same situation that you're looking at, you're looking at he's not going to play there. But Matt Murray gets hurt a lot.
We do have breaking news, by the way.
Go ahead, shoot.
And it is Hurricanes related. Justin Williams is their 16th captain in franchise history. So, unfortunately, he could be a captain that goes down with the ship.
And isn't it almost amazing that he's never been captain of that team?
It actually is.
When I think about it, I'm like, well, he's been captain before, hasn't he?
No.
He is so associated with that team. That's nuts.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
just a brief note here.
Moore and Justin Williams play together.
Yeah, I think that Justin Williams was on the Cup winner in 06.
Yeah. No, but in Philly too. I think I remember
right. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just a brief note as we're talking about captains, and then we can switch over to Calgary. Darren Drager reported, and I was at the opening of Leafs training camp, and there is no Leafs captain this year. It's going to be 3 assistant captains: Morgan Riley, Patrick Marleau, and John Tavares. Which not including Austin Matthews, which has been the talk. Well, Matthews wants to be captain. I think that obviously he's 20 old, and the organization doesn't think he's ready for that responsibility, and it does take
so much.
It does keep the pressure off of him too.
Yeah, it does, but it also reminds me so much of early stuff with Zetterberg in Detroit. Like, I think that it feels to me like Babcock is forming a protagonist antagonist for Matthews, like a purposeful. Something for Matthews to drive himself up. It really feels like, he wants Matthews to not be too comfortable. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and also he basically came out and said, on good teams when they're winning, players play less minutes. Meaning he's not going to load Tavares and Matthews with 20 to 22 minutes a night. He wants balanced attacks.
Does anybody this ship coming? I mean, this is an issue. This is going to become an issue. This became an issue in Detroit.
Right, but he's in charge.
He's in charge. He's in charge for a long time, but at some point, I saw Matthews and Tavares were being interviewed on, I think it was TSN or Sportsnet. And
Sportsnet.
They were saying, you saw that interview?
It was Elliot Friedman.
Okay, yeah, and he asked, and Matthews answered about the question, thinking, well, it doesn't matter if it's either one of us or somebody else. Matthews was quick to say, you could tell Matthews is but Matthews, he expects to be a captain on this team, and I think him not being an assistant captain is a bit of a shot. I mean, considering the fact that we had all these playing time issues and everything like that, this is a bit of a shot. Or is he taking pressure off of him? I don't think Matthews is the kind of guy who wants pressure taken off of him.
Well, I think in terms of taking pressure, in terms of the constant asking of questions from the media, they've got a veteran group, and strategically they did not name a captain. So
they're doing that on purpose, and that's what it is. They don't want to put that extra pressure on a guy in his second year. I don't blame him.
Right, exactly. I think it's fine.
But this is a little bit old school versus new school colliding. I want to see how Matthews handles it. All right, let's move on to Calgary.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Calgary and Carolina, who have been linked together in so many ways this offseason, that we're doing them together.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously they made the big trade, one of the big trades of the offseason, the Hannafin for Hamilton deal, essentially. And then, so let's talk about Calgary. Okay, a couple interesting stats about Calgary. They were their goals for ranked was 26th in the NHL. So
Mhm.
they had even a harder time scoring than Carolina.
Yeah.
Their goals against was 19th. So again, you don't want to be in the 20th range. Their power play was 28th. That's ridiculous when you've got Gaudreau and Monahan on your team. That's all I can say. There's no reason in the world.
Changed this year.
Yeah, and so they went out, and their biggest acquisition besides Hannafin was going out and getting James Neal. Okay, who obviously we all know James Neal's year last year was pretty legendary. But it's interesting that he wasn't brought back by Vegas despite that, and they went out and they did this. This is a team that finished 7th in the Western Conference standings, right?
Mhm.
14th overall in the NHL. So they were pretty good despite those horrible numbers. It's really interesting, they finished 4th in what was a pretty weak Pacific Division. So
Well, they're pretty good because they're still one of the best lines in the league. Actually, their biggest acquisition was Bill Peters, honestly, because Glenn Gullickson, I was never a fan of. I saw him throw a chair in practice. I saw him screaming in practice.
Yeah.
He's just a guy that just never, to me, felt comfortable in that environment with that team. Peters will get that goaltending number from like 19 to at least 15 just with the team defense that they'll play. And that will be a big difference. As far as offensively, look, you could say that they lost a little with Ferland, but again, they got Noah Hannafin.
Right.
They have solidified their top 3 for like the next 10 years.
And one of the plans is, and a couple other on top of Hannafin, also brought in, one by free agency, one in a trade, was Elias Lindholm and Derek Ryan. Ryan will be the number 3 center. Lindholm is, from what I've heard, is going to probably play with Gaudreau and Monahan. So, I still like their defense. I've always liked Hannafin. I think he's a talented young player. Honestly, the downfall of the Flames last year was when Mike Smith got hurt. And when Mike Smith got hurt, they went to, Gillies for a time and a couple other backups. And, if Smith can stay healthy, they have a chance to make the playoffs. I think they're talented enough to do so.
Yeah, I think the expectation is for them to make the playoffs. They are a playoff team through and through with their expectations. And somebody just sent me something I forgot about Carolina, which is another fascinating stat. They outshot their opponents more than any other team in the NHL, the Carolina Hurricanes, last year. Is that crazy? I mean, that's a crazy statistic. But so like in the shots taken,
they had good things going on with that team. They had Jaromir Jagr there for a while. Like
it's about Carolina. Carolina outshot their opponents.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
That was an old Carolina. I was going back to Carolina because someone texted me that. But Calgary, not bad either in this as far as outshooting their opponents go too. They were in the top 5 there as well. So
if you got Johnny Gaudreau, you're getting shots on that.
Yeah, you're getting shots. And it just shows you're taking that many shots. I always wonder about shots on goal are definitely a weird stat sometimes because it doesn't necessarily mean you're better if you're taking. It depends on quality shots and things like that. But remember, like Pittsburgh Penguins get outshot a lot, which is always surprising to people, but they do. But they outscore people. This a couple of quick stats about them that's interesting. I thought their top 12 forwards, they are they're 12th age-wise, so they're sort of in the middle. Top 6 defensemen, they're 20th. They're 27.6 age, so their defense is not young.
I will make a bold prediction about Calgary. They will finish ahead of Edmonton.
All right, I don't know yet, but I'm leaning in the opposite direction. But that's bold. I mean, it could go either way, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think most people think Edmonton is going to rebound, but I think Calgary. There's no reason to think Calgary's not going to rebound here. This is a good team. And,
well, I mean, the news today, and again, most of these restricted free agent situations are going to get resolved, but that Darnell Nurse and the Oilers are still way far apart on a new deal. Their defense is, without him and without Sekera, and with the players that they brought in as stopgaps like Jurbeck, and it's putrid. It's not good at all.
Nurse holds so many cards in that situation. I mean, he really does. That's a tough spot.
I think Peters makes them a tougher team to play against. I think They do need a certain amount of offensive push from the blue line, which I think they'll get. I mean, Brody has to wake up to some degree. Kachuk's going to, Matthew Kachuk's always going to score 25, 30 goals. Lindholm scored 25 goals.
I think the key for Brody is he's going to probably go back to playing Giordano. Because that was the whole thing with Hamilton there. Hamilton was playing with Giordano, and Brody was playing with, I can't remember who it was. It was Stone or he was playing with Hamonic. So now he probably goes back to playing with Giordano, and that'll probably make him rebound. But I still think Smith is the big thing, and they also got to get something out of Sam Bennett. How many times have we heard Sam Bennett trade rumors? If he could bounce back and give them 15 to 20 goals, that would be welcome for them.
I think they can get 15 out of Jankowski. The top line of Goudreau, Monahan, and Neal could be one of the 5 best in the league if it clicks.
Yeah, no, that's true. I wonder if Neal can keep up with them.
They're not. It seems like he did okay last year, keeping up with the fast-paced team.
He definitely did, but I think part of the reason he's not there is because of that.
Yeah, they're supposedly not going to use Neal on that top line. They're going to use Neal on the second line, and Lindholm is going to play on the top line.
Well, that's still really good. So either way, they could have a top 5 line in the league. They could.
Your signings that they made this summer, which kind of went under the radar big time, was when they signed Alan Quine from the Islanders. I'm a fan of it. I've always been a fan of this kid. And they got him for $700,000.
Yeah, I don't think he's that good. He's okay.
He's a 13th forward. He's a 4th liner. They have Curtis Lazar, who's basically the same type of player.
Yeah, but I don't know. Quine's shown some. I don't know. Maybe I just catch him at the right times. But when I've watched him play, I've been impressed.
He hustles.
He hustles. Remember, he was really good in the playoffs in that one playoff series they had against Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Which tells me something. Like when a player is good in the playoffs, I always look for that. There's something maybe more to his game, or at least he has the ability to find another level to his game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really important. By the way, I don't know if it's so. As an aside, before we get out of here today. Anything else on Calgary? I'm not willing to do predictions yet on where I think they're going to land, but
I'm not sure where they're going to land this year.
But I think that they think that they're in a division that just got better with San Jose and Vegas, right? So that's a factor for sure. So I was on the other day. My kids are dying to go to a hockey game, and they said, "Can you get me tickets to a preseason game?" So I went on StubHub to see, because the Flyers open their preseason, I think, again on Monday night, right, against the Islanders. So I will be attending, and so I went on StubHub, and around the NHL, this is true too. If you're looking for a good deal, preseason tickets in hockey. So for the Flyers, there's second level seats for $7 a piece. $7. I mean, I know. I mean, it's just like that's. Think about that. I mean, if you're looking for like a thing and you can get in the first level, like within the first 2 rows of the rink, for like $35 a piece. Now, and if you have a young kid and you want to take that kid to a hockey game, there's nothing better than to take him to, like I did this with my kids when they were really young, take them and sit them as close to the glass as you can, and so they get an idea of how exciting this is, how fast it is, and you'll have.
I've got a better solution, Aki. You buy a ticket for the 300 level, and you just walk down to the 100 level, because there being so many empty seats, nobody's going to know the difference.
But to me, I never remember, like, I know this has happened before, and this happens every year, but I've never actually myself gone and tried to buy tickets for this. But oh my gosh, crazy! All right, so I have a post-show comment. Can I make a post-show comment before we get out of here? I went 2 nights ago to see Elton John live. And, Elton John is now touring on his final tour of his career, which actually goes for the next 3 years, which is kind of funny. So it's going to be a long tour. We've had the Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen chats here before, right? We've had that debate. I have to say that I went to Elton John. The tickets were given to me. It was just fun. It was my wife's 50th birthday the night before. I'm like, I'll just go for fun. I have to tell you, if you get a chance to see him, he was really good. I mean,
he's better than really good. He's great.
Isn't he?
No, he's great. I saw him years ago in Houston, and then I saw him. They had a pay-per-view once when he was in Vegas, when he started that thing. Not pay-per-view. They had it on Access or whatever. He's great. Here's the thing about Elton John, and this is where he sort of differs from Billy Joel, and they toured together, right? I missed that. That would have been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Elton John's a better piano player.
Way better.
Joel. Way better. Like, it's just, to me, it's not even
band.
But Billy Joel's the better lyricist because Bernie Taupin wrote a lot of Elton John songs. Like, that's where the dividing line.
Bernie Taupin's, I think Bernie Taupin's a better lyricist than Billy Joel, though.
I mean, you could argue that. That's an arguable point.
So as a musician, the things I look for when I go to a show, right? So this is the biggest difference I noticed between Billy Joel, who everybody knows I was totally unimpressed by because it felt like he was jukeboxing himself, and it was like the band was not into it. Billy Joel's band was a bunch of young kids out making, not young kids, but younger people out making money. Elton John had his band together still from way back when. I mean, the drummer was like 80 years old. He's an incredible guitar player. I can never remember his name, but like he's famous, right?
Nigel.
Yeah. I mean, Elton John's band was way better than Billy Joel's band, and they were way more into what they were doing. It wasn't even close. And I've seen Elton John. I mean, the last time I saw him was probably 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. My favorite Elton John song is "Someone Saved My Life Tonight." Just like,
it's a great song. And
I've never seen him do it live. He did it live the other night. That just blew my mind. He's doing, because it's his last tour, he said he's doing his favorite songs, and he didn't do a lot of his hits, but he did some of obviously some of his hits, but he was such a good, I mean, for his age, and his voice is great. His piano playing was amazing. I mean, you're right, Russ. He is way better than Billy.
He also had voice surgery. You got to remember, his voice was rough when, right after he did that Millennium concert. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do have that. I have a recording of that. It's great. Yeah. Right after he did that, he had to get voice surgery. Like his voice was shot after that.
Yeah, and you can see. I mean, it was.
He doesn't have the range he used to, but he's changed the
he's moved the
and everything to fit his voice now.
Yeah, which aren't recognizable. But the band themselves, they do legitimate rocking out. They legitimately rock, and it's rare. I hate that term. It's cheesy, but they actually do. And one of the things that's interesting. And I've seen so many different kinds of bands. Currently, everything is always set up to a click track in bands because they want to keep things together and they have extra parts going on. So the song will end when it ends because it's already figured out we're going to go around like 12 times or whatever in the solo section, and then we're going to end it because it has to be set up because it's to this whole track thing. They had none of that. They had no. So when they ended the song, you would see, Elton John put up his hands like, this is the last time around. This is the cue to end it, which I thought was so it's something stupid, but it's so refreshing to like see this. They're actually just playing, right? And they're doing the same thing they've done. So if he comes around to your area, I saw the second show on this tour that's going to last for 5 years, I think, or something crazy like that. He's doing 300 gigs on his final time around. But if he comes to your area and you think Elton John's cheesy because he can be cheesy, some of his songs cheesy. Not at all. I was.
No. Because here's the thing. I mean, I don't think people realize. For one thing, he played through so many eras that yes, you could have a CD, and McDonald's did give him out once, and I did get it happily. But he has a CD of all pop hits. There's no question.
Oh yeah.
He's a few pop guys that I'll actually listen to because there's more depth in his pop songs than most have it. But again, when you see him live, he really plays a lot of piano. He'll play keyboard. Yeah. He is a great showman. He's almost as good a showman as Liberace, to be honest.
No, but the thing that was interesting to him about this time, having seen him when I was like 15, 20 years old, 30 years ago, he actually blew my mind with the humility he actually had in this. And he was totally different than I'd seen him before in that,
he's an idiot when you saw him before, and he'll admit
Yeah. He was legitimately saying, listen, when I first came here 49 years ago, we played at the Electric Factory concert, and that was my bass player, and that was my drummer back then, and that guitar player. So 4 of us were all at that concert 49 years ago.
I'm a big fan of his early work, and I'm not like I'm saying like up until like the mid '80s, after like I'm Still Standing and a lot of he started to get really too poppy for me, and I just lost interest. But I mean, in terms of his classic work, he's one of the best out there. He's a great piano player. He's a great vocalist. I like the version of Pinball Wizard that he did for the Tommy soundtrack better than the Who version.
Yeah.
I mean, Funeral for a Friend.
Rocket. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. Is classic.
So many great songs.
And I mean, Tiny Dancer, you can't get more like
Yeah,
incredible.
Tiny Dancer's great.
I mean, he gives that, he does Tiny Dancer, and and then the other song that the song he wrote for John Lennon called Empty Garden.
Yeah.
Empty Garden. Yep.
Is ridiculously beautiful. I mean, there's some things, and that was later. That was on the I'm Still Standing album.
Even Candle in the Wind's a nice song. I mean,
People will laugh. You're right. Candle in the Wind's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And people laugh at this. The song from Lion King, which is the Circle of Life song.
Great song.
Is a phenomenal song. I mean, if that was just him if you didn't have the whole Lion Thing connection to it, it would be one of his biggest classic. You would be like, if that was written in the 70s, that would be an epic song that people would just be like, wow.
Yeah.
Yep. We have to end because
All right, guys. I just wanted to mention that if you get a chance, we'll be back again tomorrow, I guess. Yeah, Friday. Why not? We'll do it again. We'll do it again tomorrow. Remember that about hockey? We will talk to you then.